Moving away from that, a former president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Wole Olanipekun, has urged the National Assembly to suspend further amendments to the 1999 Constitution of the country. The legal luminary said the country requires a new homegrown constitution that would genuinely reflect the collective will of Nigerians and their uniqueness instead of another round of patchwork reform. The former president spoke while delivering the 13th Convocation Lecture of Afe Babalola University, Ado in Ekiti. He adjured that the 1999 Constitution, which he described as a military albatross imposed on Nigerians, had outlived its usefulness and legitimacy. Now, to help us make sense of this, we are joined by Executive Director, Sterling Center for Law, Deji Ajare. Deji, very quickly, does the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria currently provide for a mechanism to conduct a national referendum?
Thank you. Good evening. Unfortunately, there is no mechanism in the current Constitution of Nigeria that permits for a referendum. And that is why if Nigerians are desirous of a referendum that would lead to a new constitution entirely, I think the appropriate step to take first is to amend the Constitution to provide for a referendum and its processes and procedure. But without that, there is no platform upon which to put any referendum that Nigeria is going to have at the moment. And so, really, there's no basis for it. There's no legal basis for it. And I think the learned silk should have understood that, really, this kind of call will only eventually end up in legal battles in the courtroom, and eventually will lead us nowhere. Our experience has shown over the years that really any attempt to, do a whole-scale constitution review, it fails. And for me, if we're going to be pragmatic, really, then we must do what is practical. And I think what is practical is, while we are seeking a new people-oriented, people-owned constitution, while we are doing that, we must not neglect the regular amendments that can be done to the constitution to take care of immediate lived experiences of Nigerians, things that we are going through daily. People can wait before 2031 before we set up our lives. So while I agree that there is indeed a need for us as Nigerians to have a constitution that emanates from the people, I fault the tactics adopted or proposed by the learned silk.
Now, Deji, I want us to consider Section 9 of the 1999 Constitution, which of course outlines the amendment process. Is there any legal room to bypass the National Assembly and call for a referendum on constitutional matters?
Like I have told you, there is no provision for such a referendum in our Constitution. We can do it. Our legislators can make that provision by amending the Constitution and going through the prescribed processes of including that. We can have an enabling act that will, permit of the referendum by amending the Constitution and providing for the processes and procedures. But other than that, right now, the only body capable of bringing any change to our Constitution is the National Assembly, of course, along with the states' houses of assembly.
Now, given the doctrine of constitutional supremacy, would a referendum not specifically provided for in the Constitution be legally binding, or would it just be merely advisory?
But what I understand, what you mean is that if a constitution provides for a referendum, it may be conflicting. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. So would it be legally binding, or would it just merely be advisory?
Oh no! If the Constitution has made provisions and set out the criteria, the procedure for embedded procedure for calling for a referendum, usually it would prescribe a certain number of persons must sign a petition, a certain number of persons must support it, and then a certain number of days must go on, publication will be done. If all of those provisions are provided in the Constitution and they are followed, Of course, it is constitutional, but right now we do not have it. And so what the learned silk is proposing is what is extra constitutional. But what the learned silk should have actually suggested is that really we should first, while we are trying to amend the constitution to allow for a referendum, we should continue with our practical amendment procedures that meet our day-to-day experiences, like we have talked about. So we have the justice system, for instance. There are provisions that need to be included in our constitution to tighten the news, to ensure that, look, the time it takes before justice is delivered is reduced. Can we wait till 2031 before we have that? I do not think so. So that's what we're saying. While we are pursuing one, and I can assure you that given our experience in Nigeria, it is practically impossible to have a new constitution in 2031. It could be, it's likely to be a longer project. But while we are doing that, we can continue to have our usual amendments to allow us live with it by ourselves and within the country based on our experiences. And I think that is really what is most important for us, because our lives are not going to be suspended until the new constitution comes in.
All right, Deji, I mean, I'm not very sure when it comes to the legalities and how long it takes for a constitution to be amended. But I think my question for you now is with regards to the National Assembly. Can the National Assembly legally suspend the constitutional amendment process in favor of initiating or supporting a referendum? Or would such action itself be unconstitutional?
Absolutely. I have answered this before. First, let me talk about there is no prescribed time. I am speaking from our experience as Nigeria, as a country. Over the years, you would have seen every effort that has been made at a small scale or large scale amendment of the constitution fails. It was only where during the presidency of Buhari, when Saraki was Senate president, that this piecemeal approach that is currently being used started, and we can see that it is working because there are issues that we generally agree on, but there are those that are too thorny that we are unable to agree on. But now, can the National Assembly call for a validly or legally call for a referendum? Right now, no. There is no provision for it, either in any act of the National Assembly or in the Constitution. And more so, there is no provision for a referendum to amend our Constitution. So the only way the National Assembly can do that, and I repeat again, is by first amending the Constitution to allow for referendum. But other than that, the National Assembly cannot do anything about this Constitution other than to try to do its piecemeal approach to amending the Constitution.
Deji, thank you. Thank you so much for all of those insights.
Thank you very much, Margaret.